and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension Pioneers and all you beautiful beings of light and soul expansion. So welcome to this galactic update. This will be for this month, but this is an ongoing, right? This goes beyond the confines of time. It's whenever you watch it, whenever you view it. And if you watch my latest Ascension update, you've seen that there's been some changes. Now, at the beginning of every month, I used to do these Ascension updates. And what I'm guided to do at this time is to have two separate different formats. They kind of correspond to each other, but because many beings are moving into the higher streams of galactic consciousness, these updates will be more for these, and I'm going to talk more about the volunteer souls and much about the convolution of the universe and these things and topics not everyone at this time is able to perceive or is on the path of perceiving. So the Ascension updates are more for those who are ascending and who are tuning to the energies and activating, integrating the new earth consciousness and their new humanness. So these updates, on the other hand, go more to the deepest crevices of the unexplored, multi-layered, multidimensional facets of consciousness. So I'll begin because it's a super long update. Please bear with me because there's so much coming through. And as I've been talking about in concordance, right, in the new Ascension update, there's those few who have now fully ascended, and I've explained there what it means, so I won't go into that here in this update. I'm just going to quickly give you a review, an update. This first part will still be a little bit on the Ascension note. The other one will be more about the convoluted universe and different aspects. And this is so important for a bigger, greater vision of this galactic consciousness we're tuning into. So for you to have this expanded, broadened vision, you have to understand some concepts that exist beyond the extremes of this game of duality that so many have been participating in creating in this realm. Because, you know, as much as there's this overall shift of the collective of beings that say we want to hold this as a vision, that will exist. And then when the threshold is crossed, a new reality can be formed. And that's how it's all done in the beautiful workings of creation. So for many of us, we have now moved through this new energy upgrade. This was a very strong wave that actually served as a threshold for the new earth, meaning that we're now fully tuned in our consciousness, and many are now fully ascended ones. And I talk about this and what it means and the alignment with Gaia in the Ascension update. So watch that first. I really recommend that before you watch this, because this is an upgraded version. I'm going to go through my notes here because it's so much to say that I have to kind of go through, you know, one by one in a structured format. Otherwise, I'm going to talk again multidimensionally, jumping from one thing to the next, and how I did in the Ascension update. So that's quite a lot to handle. So we're going to go at it. So I have my notes prepared. Forgive me if I have to peek in, but I want to go through this as fast as I can so the video is not like 2 hours long. So this means, right, this threshold that has been crossed, you can feel it. It's an inner feeling state. And watch the Ascension update for that, because everything is explained there, how this feels. So it's about, while holding and maintaining our planetary bodies, you know, to be these servants to life, to creation, as planetary volunteer servant souls, until it's a part of our soul agreement, that has to be done in balance, right, to keep our form. So we have to tend to our form a lot. And Gaia keeps on calling. She keeps on giving these messages that it's now so important to remember that the planetary and personal ascension are one. Because it's all the elements we get from the nourishment of this, right? But it's what we're moving into, this consciousness of Gaia exists beyond what we say, okay, Earth, right? Earth as the planetary, the physical. When you move into the new Earth, you're going to feel more aligned with the Gaia consciousness, and this voice will keep calling you. That means that you have fully aligned with Gaia's ascended timeline and new Earth consciousness. So the Gaia's ascension and personal ascension as one. I talk about this in the Ascension update as well. So that means aligning with Gaia's core level resonance as well as your core creation self. I have many videos on that topic. So how we tune ourselves inwardly to our light soul infusion, so our light soul body and the Gaia's light body form, which is the higher name, right? Like one example would be my physical name as I was born on Earth at that particular timeline was Polona. And my soul name, which came after, after my awakening and the awakening to my soul core resonance, was Aurea. And this is my higher soul, this fifth dimensional and beyond. I have many different aspects, like we all do. And the same is for Gaia. That's why so many people, I think, have been getting these new names, and that's been a part of our process. So consider that as just as much as it's important for you. And sometimes people tell me, well, it's not important what you're called. Well, these things, for us to understand the different frequency levels, that's why we have these different resonances, because the name is the word. Everything first comes from that divine word, which is pure sound. So your name is sound, and it's a part of the light language that you receive. And I talk about this light language and what it means in the Ascension update. So this name, Gaia, is an essence. Earth is a three-dimensional, 3D aspect and holographic reality, while Gaia is this essence of New Earth. And Gaia has been coming up. She keeps coming up in that form a lot for those of you who are tuned in. And she's moved into this new vibrational space, as well as we have, but it's still like a gradual transition in terms of the planetary three-dimensional level, which means that from many portals of light and these new Earth portals, and I'll talk about that more, from there on, it kind of like bleeds through and throughout the globe, throughout the planet, and this is still a gradual process. So basically, that's an overall view of what this is. The mantra for you, for us at this time, when you feel like you have moved beyond this threshold, would be, I am a fully ascended one. I am an ascended one. So what is this threshold? I want to say a little bit more about that. Recently, as a part of my cosmic drawings, I made a Tantric sketch. And I was meditating during my run, and the vision came. I saw how the energy moves and life force. I'm like, I have to draw it. I have to put it in this drawing, because it's more obvious that way than to just speak about it. And you're going to be able to see all of those sketches. They're going to be part of the book on the grand design and mission of volunteer souls. And it really shows how the energy moves, and there's a threshold. Even I drew this threshold, and beyond this threshold, what you might now perceive as your DNA, which is a linear spiral, right? The coiling serpents, and you would say that's how even the DNA looks like. The higher, when you cross that threshold, I've been drawing it like waves and waves, right? You've probably seen many galactic images even on the internet, how then the spiraling waves of DNA move out and they intermingle. It's an interlocking multidimensional process. So it's a different consciousness all on its own, and beyond this threshold, everything is perceived quite differently, okay? So what we perceive as this linear DNA, and the coiling of the DNA spiral actually becomes this 12-dimensional and beyond, like this coiling, and it's more like you just feel it, and you might feel it in your body, like I explained in the Ascension update, that you are holding this Earth vessel in Gaia's attuned New Earth consciousness body through your light body. But you're also at the same time simultaneously tuning into all the other realms and all the subtle realms. So this is that threshold of awareness. And the Ascended Ones now move beyond this. And the volunteer souls, we stay here. We have to be the grounded ones here because we have the mission and we remain in form. We remain in form, remember that. The threshold is actually a state of returning, which means you're remembering, your divine remembrance is kicking in, and you're remembering that you made this agreement to be here to serve through your life force and the planetary life force. And it's all in this divine remembrance process. So we will create from here on in a multidimensional facet, in a multidimensional fashion. This is what is shifting for us. So we serve actually beyond this threshold. As you know, when we came here, we had to densify, solidify in a way to even be able to be maintained in form, because the consciousness was so light for many of you as volunteers. We never actually left home, because watch my Ascension update when I explain we're not actually from Source. We are of Source. We are Source itself. So when people have these simultaneous experiences and parallel memory timelines, like my consciousness on starships, my consciousness on homeworlds, different aspects of me, we never actually left that. So it's we sent out these advanced extensions of ourselves here, and now we integrated those consciousness aspects of ourselves, because the mission was always to bring them here, to anchor the seeds of that consciousness here, because we are the bridges. I also want to talk about the portal makers, because that's been coming up a lot lately. I've been asking about that because we always say, well, portals are activating or portals are opening up. And I made a distinct difference, and I'm going to write about that in my book. It's going to be available when it will. What are actually the new Earth portals, because they correspond to the new Gaia's, this new Gaia's body, which is this fifth density awareness body of fifth dimensional, but fifth density of the being that is Gaia. So what this means is that it's bleeding through these new Earth portals, and it's a part of the process for many more advanced ones. And these are creation pillars that are the most advanced and rarest souls here, but these are actually portal makers. And these souls don't just activate the portals, they themselves are the living portals. So wherever they go and they're guided to in unison with Gaia, they're fully unified with Gaia, because they have been with this essence since the very beginning, since the beginning of this orchestration. So they're creating these portals, and they're often, wherever we are. Sometimes we're just guided to sit somewhere for a while. We don't know why. Sometimes I'm just grounded and guided to do this anchoring of energy, and then something shifts, and you don't even know how much influence you have on this reality when you perceive yourself on Earth, right? This planetary physical being, but you do. And this activation brings in this light, and it spreads when it's ready throughout the globe, and there's many people who are activating, then spreading this forward. So it's all like a gradual sequential process where each of us has our own divine counterpart and our own part to play. So we are actually shifting between the many multidimensional operating systems. You might have different templates of you. People might call these aspects, your angelic self, the ET self, all these aspects, right? But it's not so important with the names. It's more that you know that you are serving, not like, you're sending out this narrow band signal somewhere or a certain star or something that you feel like it's locational, but it's more like, when I discuss in the Ascension update, it's a spiraling consciousness. And these different operating systems are now, it's like when in our brain, it's aligning with our brain synapses, and we're going to talk about this in the brain waves process. So these functions of specialization that we hold on these different attunement levels are now coming into form. So it depends on what is required at a specific time, and this is how we're usually guided. So you don't just have one operational self, one task, one mission. It's very much multidimensional and broad. And you just go with the pulse of life and how it's guiding you. So the main emphasis of this video for this month is the brain synthesis. Like I said, our brain is being fully rewired also physically for this multidimensional consciousness. So the things we've talked a lot about as concepts, in the convoluted universe, and what is reality, how is time perceived, what does it mean, this multidimensional time travel, what? We might have concepts and ideas, but for those of us who are now tuning into this galactic consciousness, this is becoming an actual way of how we can have that in an integrated knowledge now. We really get how things flow. The emphasis was on the brain in relation to left and right, because if we only develop in the left brain hemisphere, we say it's only in the right, we will always have this division. And it's almost like, scientists are now trying to search for these answers, or to prove God, or the God concept. And I was watching this documentary about Stephen Hawking, and as much as I like him in a way, I also think I felt into him as a being, and this almost like this desperation to find this answer, and how he is, and he had this disease, this illness that caused him to be so disabled physically. In a way, his brain was so developed, and the capacity of what they were able to prove already. But the thing is that there's almost like the separation when we try to tune into this just logical, just science, just this rational. And it keeps us away from having those answers come to us naturally when the brain synthesis is is fully operational. So those of you who've been doing this, who had a full synthesis, full polarization within you that went into unification of left and right, and a lot of it comes through working with the light, like masters have been teaching us through Kriya and all these aspects of how you move the light through your body. And I developed the Tantric mastery of life force, plus the additional to upgrade your consciousness of the life pulse mastery, as well as for this purpose. So this galactivation, in a way, is this full synthesis, and a lot of activity you may notice in the brain. Sometimes you may feel, I don't know, maybe sometimes we have even physical symptoms on certain aspects, but it's the life force that we managed to lift at this particular time that's now also making its way through the brain, and it's like rewiring, because our brain is physically changing as well. Those of you who are moving into this new state, you know, like in the past, many beings were seen with these giant heads. It's because their brain was different. It was it's more in term mirroring, directly reflecting the spiral of life, the galactic consciousness. Our brain literally reflects this, how it was until now, you know, left, right, you know, logic, reason, and then intuition. But in truth, it has to be done in a way to know that the heart, as we are an infant, as we're still a fetus, it's not separate from the brain. It only later becomes so we can experience this form of extreme polarization before this unity work is done. So this is a natural process where before the brain could not process this. So this was called the lower mind, right? Because our brain was literally not able to filter through the divine mind, which is the divine logic. So, you know, when the scientists are trying to prove certain things and prove God, if they're only using the part of their brain, which is the left brain, without the synthesis of the right, they're never going to fully get the answers, and it's only going to leave them in this endless quest. You know, when you look at the scientists who perhaps were early scientists, like I don't know, Einstein, right, one of the most famous ones, they were simply just playing with that. For them, it was more playful. A lot of the modern scientists now are really reflecting this. It's almost like, we got to do this, we got to prove it, where are we from, what is it all about, and it feels kind of anxious. So for those of you doing this integration, you know a lot of the things just by, not just with your logic, also with this higher intuitive mind that scientists are trying to prove, but you know it as a fact, you feel it, you've even had experiences with it and how consciousness flows. So through my Tantric course on Conscious Life Force Mastery and the Galactic Pulse of Life Mastery, that's an additional bonus part of the course, which is 6.5 hours long. I know it's long, super long, but I had amazing feedback and results from people that have been telling me it's my most amazing course ever, and a lot of them already had results by doing the exercises. Because the second part, especially when you know how to manage and direct the force of your life force in the body, you become attuned to this galactic pulse of light, then you start working with the galactic pulse of light for greater mastery. And go a few videos back when I talked about this, when the great mystics, you know, the mysticism of the many star beings that actually used this when they wanted to elevate the consciousness when they were ready, and a lot of you are ready now. So when you're doing this, and consider taking this course, because it's amazing in the way how simple and yet how profound it is when you do that. We are becoming these prototypes of that shift, you know, the upgraded, it's like an expansion. You're not just feeling it at first, many beings felt it, right? And the life force started flowing in their lower region. A lot of us are not feeling it there anymore, and we perhaps getting scared, and we say, what, where am I not feeling this Tantric life force there anymore? It just means that at this current stage, for a lot of you, it's moved up, and you might feel more activated in a mental way, not like a lower mind, but you feel more like mental activity. Like I've been doing these cosmic drawings, and I wasn't doing so much of the tantric exercises or tantric dancing that I do to stimulate that, because what we do is we stimulate, and then it's not like it's a day-to-day process. It's more like in cycles that the rhythms of your body has it, right? So it's it's not like what you do just day to day, your daily devotions. It's the process of, it's a complex process that your body has, and sometimes you don't understand it through your lower mind. You're trying to rationalize why you were feeling certain sensations, why now you longer do. It's because of that. It's because the body has its process. So now for a lot of you, this activity of the life force, especially if you've been doing these exercises, has moved up. and you feel like very mentally stimulated, but it's like this higher mind, it's the divine mind, it's divine logic that's opening up because you've done this lower no, lower left and right brain hemisphere tuning and rebalancing. So we're the prototypes of that, and this also deals with the upgraded nervous system, and I've talked about that in my previous video update. So it's from the base and now it's moving into the integration in the brain. I want to say now something which is I think very cute. We've started watching Star Trek movies, the old ones, right? Not the TV series because that would be too much. But the motion pictures that began back in, I think, '79. And these movies are super good. They have so much information and messages that we're already passing through then, when it's like the timelines have shifted into this, you know, preparing humans for what later followed as the cosmic convergence back in '87. And it started actually, you know, we started receiving these greater messages of greater convoluted universe aspects and concepts. So in the Star Trek, I really love the movies, plus some of them are super funny. I really highly recommend them. It's important to watch this thing now because it's what was before as a concept, it's now, or maybe a theory or science fiction, is now becoming a reality for many of us. And in the Star Trek, the character of Spock, right, because, you know, he's part of the Vulcans there, the Vulcan Society, but he's a hybrid, he's a mixed, a human and half Vulcan. And the Vulcans use only logic. They're trained, and they're the high priestess and priestesses. Actually, they have turned away from these lower emotions, they moved into the logical aspect. But Spock represents an interesting alternative because he's half human and half Vulcan, right? And I do relate, I have been feeling like Vulcans are an analogy for the Vegans, the vegan mysticism, which is exactly what I've talked about here. This is the mysticism that's behind this knowledge of using the galactic pulse of light to upgrade your consciousness. And that's why these beings live as these mystics, and that's why they use spiritual technology for anything. They can do things with their consciousness. And we can as well when we start tuning into that. And you're finding that for yourself. You're getting more telepathic, you're getting more tuned in, and this is a part of that. That's your inner spirit technology. It's the biggest technology you can have because it's not dependent on material things for you to be a part of this higher technology. And then those beings who are a part of that as a collective, so once they learn how to cultivate that within, they become a part of the collective that can hold this energy. So when they have certain starships, right, these ships are organic and they can shift with the consciousness of what they're willing to or need to operate within. So if they have a function they need to utilize, the ship will act in a way as an extension of their consciousness. That's an organic light ship. So, okay, let's go back to Spock. What he represents is the balance, is the fusion of the logic and heart as one, because there's many questions, right? There's this doctor that always like pokes him, like, ha ha ha, what do you know? You know, you just use logic, or you're just like this green being, ha ha, and it's funny, right? But he's so wise, he's so ancient, and that's why he is one of the main controllers there in the ship in terms of using wisdom to make advanced precognition. It's like he tunes into the consciousness of what they would then do manually or, you know, physically, or they would need to utilize in the ship for their mission. So he represents that fusion, and it's so interesting because we're now feeling that fusion, and the true wisdom comes from that. And I remember in one aspect when we were talking about what is God, I'm going to mention that next, and he was getting more and more open also as a human, because it was like seen as a human, you know, they're so illogical. But when there's this fusion, beauty happens, and he is human as well, because they form with the main admiral, right? They have this beautiful friendship, and they correspond, and they're like fused together as well. And he says, well, what if God is in every heart of the human? And we're, you know, he says, yeah, I'm only half human. And then Kirk says, well, in truth, we're all humans in a way, right? So it's a very beautiful analogy. And like the scientists, right, and they want to prove God, you can never fully prove God, and you cannot just use the left brain, because you're always gonna, it's kind of like rotating back and forth. So even if you prove something's just a concept, well, are you able to live it? Has your consciousness integrated that? And the right brain part was about integrating that, and it's the embodiment of that. And once you fuse that, you're fully balanced. And what I call my course, the Tantric means you are a balanced, co-creational being who is not just a conceptualized being. You are a fully sovereign individual who's an organic being as well. You know how to integrate, and that's that fusion. Okay, so now I want to mention the Star Trek about something beautiful as well, because that's the part when I talk about now, the proving of God. So this is an aspect, I don't know in which movie, I think it was the fifth one, when they went out beyond the Great Rift, there was this fanatic being, right, an ex-Vulcan, and he was actually Spock's half-brother, and he said, I really want to go beyond that, because that's the great... you know, what we would now call the Havana, or I don't know how many people call it, that's within the domain of Source. He said, I need to search for God. God gave me this vision. So when they went out, and it actually showed how they moved through that rift, beyond that, and it was this beautiful blue sun. It was like the great central sun, actually. And when they went physically into that realm, what he found there was actually just that illusionary aspect of him, which was fanatically seeking God and was actually angry and was wanting dominion and things like that. And when actually there was then the disaster there, and the other ones, the main characters, managed to run away. Sorry if there's a spoiler for you if you haven't watched it yet, like me, was a late bloomer. But actually when they went for search for God, the answer was that God is an aspect, is you, that is the purity, that you can experience anything that you want, even if that's madness and illusion. You're gonna get that. That source in its purest aspect is the mirror of anything you wish to create, and that being created that. So he was almost like swallowing up by his own delusions of that and seeking outside of himself. And that's when they said in the end, you know, what if God is in every aspect, in every heart? And that's the truth. So God is, remember, all that is. All that is God. And the free will is actually this pure core creation will, is that the will that is given to you is the will to perceive all that we want, anything that you want. So sometimes I have examples when people are very in illusion, or they're manipulated, or they're even mind controlled, and sometimes these people even write to you, and they're like internet trolls, right? And they're actually enslaved, what it appears to be, right? An enslavement. We say, well, they're enslaved. But no one can be fully enslaved unless on a bigger level you have given your free will. And what Spirit has reminded me of is that even those that are giving their sovereign free will away, seemingly to be distorted and manipulated, even that is their own free will choice. So even in that you have the spark of the wisdom of free will. So they don't know, perhaps on the physical existence, that they're victims, and you would say, oh, poor people, right? But it is a choice that they made. It's a soul level choice. So when you get to the core of the purity of Source and allowing every experience, whatever you choose, there is no victim mentality, there is no misconception, and it's like a distortion of what we perceive Source to be, like a being that's punishing. But it's whatever you created for yourself, and that's actually the essence of New Earth. Whatever you will be creating for yourself will be a direct reflection for you. That's the New Earth essence. So a lot of people also, I want to talk about distortion some more, because people still mention those fear-based agendas and the ideas of archons and the false light and the harvesting and these concepts. And I made a video recently about the galactic history. Watch that. Like fingering. But I want to say a little more, because people are still not fully perceiving that. I later still got questions, but what does this mean? You know, you mentioned this is a past memory timeline, and are beings free now? The beings who are free are the beings who want to be free, who have consciousness. Their consciousness has been freed. So this was never a war that you would see. You see it as a war, right? A duality, conflict. It's never a war for something physical. It was always what was the war within your consciousness, because it wasn't free. So many masters have been talking about this. And in truth, anything that has the ability to manipulate, to distort, to keep captivated, to what would say enslaved, that you would no longer perceive yourself as the sovereign that you are, is actually holographic, and it can only be affected when existing in that hologram, holograph. So that means that we can still be manipulated and influenced when we associate with those aspects of us. So these dark ones, what sometimes people say, the Illuminati, the Dark Lords, whatever, these are the fallen ones. Let's just say the fallen ones, because dark sounds. We all have aspects, we know aspects that are dark, and they not necessarily are negative, you know. It's the shadow self that sometimes also in creation, and a bigger purpose, it has this purpose on its own, but it's not in the non-balance. But when it's this disbalanced, when it's in disproportion to itself, then it becomes a self-serving aspect that is the fallen aspect. So this duality and this manipulation can only be influenced from those levels. So they, the dark, the fallen ones, only have influence on the third dimensional to the fourth lower astral dimensional planes. But they're actually doing this and these manipulations because they want to keep as much as the life force that exists in the humans, because God is in all, in human heart and all, it's the life force. They want to keep it preserved in this lower consciousness because they're afraid to lose their own incarnations, their own embodiments here. And I've recently watched this Arcturian perspective where it said, for many of them, they were, when they came, and this was after the fall, before the fall and after the fall of Atlantis, that's when the true fall began. And I love the analogy that they gave, why the earth was in this darkness for so long. It's almost like because so much harm has been done, that what happened is, it's almost like, I love this analogy because it was like putting your arm or your leg in a cast after an accident. You need it for a while, right, to heal. But once you're healed, that cast becomes, it kind of like restricts you, right? So this is now the time, the shedding, the revelation, everything that's coming out is that cast is falling off, and everything is being seen. That is no more fear and darkness. It's healed. Underneath the surface, it's all healed and whole. So when they had these influences, they were the humanoids and others, but they were not of here, not the natives who were here. So they had their own agendas, and there's so many agendas, and I always tell you that. Go always in the unity consciousness that is beyond these agendas, that it's fully sovereign and free, that serves the ascended reality. And even in Dolores Cannon's conference, someone asked about archons, and she made so many regressions, you know, in hypnotherapy, and she said, what archons? She didn't even know what that is, because she said in her regression, it's never like that. And it's the perception of people's ego that makes people fallen, because they associate with that frequency, so they have the ability to be manipulated within that distorted frequency. That's all there is. When you look at the nature of everything and the reality, like just yesterday I was looking at the shower curtain in the bathroom, you know, and when you look at those ascended eyes with this vision, higher vision, you only see rotating dots. They're like spinning dots. You see vibration, and you see that that aspect is just some vibrating particles in truth. And when you have the eyes to see it, you see that's how it is. So in this reality, when you know you can create anything. You would decide where these particles will go and how they'll act. So these lower planes, that's the only influence in the only reality where they can still have influence. So your solution is to go beyond that, to transcend. So once beyond this barrier and the illusion, we cannot be influenced because we align with the unified divine intelligence on the level of our natural soul resonance. So the solutions are, I'm going to get it as facts because then we're moving on, because I don't want to make it too long again, guys, because then you will complain again that I have too long videos. So first, getting out of the lower 3 to 4 dimensional time construct, linear time, projections, alterations in terms of prophecies, anything that feels prophecy based, just, you know, see it as multiple timelines. Don't take it as fact, and move in the no time of the reality you yourself can choose to create, that you every day are choosing to create in your expanded galactic consciousness awareness. Those of you who are volunteer souls, you have a tremendous amount of influence within this. So take this as a great responsibility. It's a gift. This responsibility, in truth, sometimes we perceive it as a burden. In truth, it's a gift. Okay. So walk in the no time. We're moving into this no time, and that's where this brain now synthesis is becoming about. This is happening for this gateway of New Earth, and for many right now that are experiencing this gateway of New Earth. So it's just this feeling of how it is, and this is the gateway. If you're still in this linear fashion, you cannot fully align with this higher New Earth frequency. It's about activating the higher heart, the portal of physical ascension. I've talked about this numerous amounts of times. Service to others and the whole as one. That's selfless service. That's not like I'm going to serve because I'm going to ascend, I'm going to get something from it. No, no, no. Even that is cheating. It has to be selfless. It has to be of the pure divine will that moves through you and wants to serve life in creation. Taking back your full ownership and power, your sovereignty, your soul's integrity. If you feel, oh, people are out to get me, beings are out to get me, who's out to get you? It's your own ego, you know. You'll have to work and confront that part of you that believes in that. Because just saying, oh, that doesn't exist, on the other hand, will make you even more an illusion. You know, you've got to confront those aspects, because in truth, fear is not bad, again, when it's imbalanced, when it's telling you what's there as a distortion so you can approach it with the higher consciousness and dissolve that into the greatness of the light of unity. Then taking back this power also by not feeling sorry for anyone or anything. And I literally mean it, anything. Even if it's just a tiny thing you still feel sorry about, or you say, oh, these dark ones are, oh, that's happening, oh, that's still not being ascended. Because when you really get ascension, you get that life is always existing. It's not just life is happening, life is in constant existence. And in the space of awareness, there's no poor souls, because you know that everyone can choose their reality, everyone on a soul level. No one needs rescue, because they're all of all life. They're all of all that is, that I am. So they choose, like you have chosen, and you are choosing. You're continuing, you're continuously choosing that. So no victim mentality. Victims cannot ascend. No energy vampirism if you find still that leakage of energy, or even just within yourself. But also sometimes people are acting out, like leeching onto others or mistreating earth and life forms, and then they're pretending to be all mentally ascended. That's not true ascension. And then walk with allness, with all life in love. Now we're going to get to the last part, which is the convoluted universe part, when I'm going to talk about some very interesting concepts, and I'm so excited to begin with this part. Welcome now to this last part, which is about the convoluted universe. So I'm so excited to share this with you. Once again, I want to start with the Star Trek series, I know, but it's very beautiful, because my favorite part is actually the fourth part. It's the episode of time travel, and it has to do with the repopulating of whales. So it really shows the concept of time travel from the perspective of time being cyclical, because you have to understand time as not linear but cyclical in order to be able to time travel. So the time travel here is shown, you know, not just like some people say these are ETs or beings from other realities, yes, but they're also future selves that are coming back if there's a specified mission concerning that. So they actually, in this mission, there was a probe coming, and it started to call out, and they realized that it's actually calling out the whales. And the whales, you know, they produce the wham frequency. That's the wham sound that the earth has to be placed in a certain way that everything functions properly. So they were actually extinct in our future selves. So they realized that the only thing they can do is go back to the past and take the whales from there and try to repopulate them. So this is the showcasing of the time travel, also, you know, coming back to you know, use an element that you would say is it extinct, or it's out of the genetic pool if it's for a certain mission. So time is cyclical. So this concept is very much natural, and it does correspond also to the harvesting program theories and these fear-related theories, for example, in alien abduction cases. And I've watched a lot of videos in my time back about that. This alien abduction program to recreate certain hybrid beings, and people sometimes are very fear-related to that. And there's a lot of fear-mongering and what they're going to do to us, and why is this program, and no one understands it, and it's clandestine, and, you know, people saying all these things. But in truth, when you see a bigger picture, you have to see, what does it mean? What does gene pool, you know, gene pool mean? The extreme of treating the gene pool is genocide, you know, genocide. It's like when a certain genome no longer exists, you kind of like totally eliminate it. So the gene pool increase within those programs is for a certain species to create new prototypes. For example, in cases of extinction, of going into the timelines where this was, like I said, a genocide. And people now have this fear of invasion, and a lot of regression works are talking about that this is actually not a pleasant phenomena. Of course it's not, right? When you look at it physically, it never is. But in many cases, they don't go as deep in this states of awareness like Dolores Cannon has developed with her method. She said it's always, the biggest level, it's always benevolent, and it's always for a greater purpose, that we, with our brain capacity that's filtering this through lower minds, we don't always understand. We have to know oneness in all things and how everything correlates. And the things we don't understand, they don't necessarily have to be negative. So these are certain future aspects of races that have went to extremes. Some of them into the extremes of annihilation. And these are aspects of our own human selves at this particular timeline that we live now on Earth at this time, that are now getting into these timelines as the rationalists, the pure technology, science, reason-based. Again, go back to the mind equation that we've talked about. So they're doing the same, you know. For example, one is the destruction of planetary resources, right? That's the basics. Is certain things and species were already fully eradicated from the planet and the genetic pool. That leads to destruction of, like I said, the genetic material, and the most extreme case is genocide. But this in turn, as our bodies are a part of the planet and the planetary elements, and the planet can give us the bodies, creates destruction of our own genetic pool. And this is what many only technology-based races have also been learning, that you can't only go into the left brain, and these are also our future selves. If you know that the time is cyclical, it's not just aliens that go from somewhere outside. You have to relate everything to the integration of allness of life. All creation is connected. So these programs then from the future, and these future aspects, and they're about how to restore that. It's not hostile, is the way we would say it's hostile. And it's time for us as humans to get over the fear of alien invasion. Spirit keeps reminding me of that. It's the dark ones, or the fallen ones we've been talking about, that they actually kind of like superimpose this scenario upon us. They want to imprint this fear to cause this separation, and for us to not understand that our true heritage, our true galactic heritage, is benevolent. It's always been the watchers, the overseers, those who have been planting roots here since the beginning of time. And the Star Trek shows that in this time travel. So it's their own future selves. So many different star races actually have had programs here on Earth. And Earth, as you know, it is a genetic library, like Pleiadians have been sharing with us. Since the beginning, they also had their civilizations here, and then they left. And now there's just aspects here who are incarnate. It's not like a full civilization. But these programs were aspects of themselves and their own lessons, and in the bigger picture, what they were learning. So these different planetary races with their different DNA influences, also what caused in the physical plane was different planetary races, we know, our different color of the skin, and why we're racial, right? Hello. Why are we so prejudiced is because we don't understand this. Different landscapes, different cultures, all that is a part of that. And it's the genetic pool, not just of Earth, but it's star influences. We're all of stars, right? Physically as well. And these influences here. But instead of treating it like a culture of oneness, we're treating it with this, it's almost like this superimposed idea of fear and separation. So the project of greater proportions was always that if there can be unity within all that, amidst such extremes of duality. One example was also in Star Trek, the Federation and peacemaking with the Klingons. Klingons represent what we would have these as alternatives in our reality, as many people talk about the reptiles, the reptilians, who are more violent, like bloodshedding, as like that's how they're portrayed. And these races, why they're so violent, why so many people deal with them or talk about them, because they have aspects there. Otherwise, they wouldn't be even interested in that. So they're dealing with their own frustrations within that genetic pool of the reptilianoids. So that's just how it is. And we have to make peace with all of that. Like in the movie, they also made a peace treaty. At first it was hard. Many people were afraid of change. They were fearing change because they were so afraid of the Klingons. They're so dark. They're so heavy. Yuck, yuck. There's everyone complaining of how they smell. They don't know their anatomy, things like that. And it's that fear of something being different. But in the end, they made peace, and although it wasn't easy, but only in togetherness they made peace. So all had actually, all these aspects had their personal interests and agendas, but the councils of light, of unified consciousness, they actually supersede and oversee it all. So they're the great watchers and the overseers, and there's councils beyond councils, and the councils of councils, and what I call the great white brotherhood of light in the fullness of the service to the life force of all life in creation. So these councils are always there, not just to supersede and oversee, but to make adjustments when it's necessary or when there's violations, sometimes to these treaties as well. One example would be how Gaia in her planetary incarnation as a physical being, she wasn't always, that was also I think coming from Arcturian, she wasn't always discerning on her choices and which souls would come in, and some of them went to extreme darkness, which beings, right, who came in, and some of them were really extremely going into the darkness scenarios, so very destructive timelines. So this is as well in our reality, right, these destructive timelines, and these souls came in many numbers. So now there's this law of free will that we know, and we say, well, there's free will for everyone to do what they want. It's because we have a lack of understanding what free will is at the bigger vision. Is there's also something greater beyond the free will that we're given on these lower density worlds, that's beyond it. So this greater law clearly states this, that if there are any violations, such as if the interests of the few would in any way compromise the soul evolutionary journey of the evolving ones, those that are on the ascending timeline, there would be a divine intervention and assistance happening now in this gradual process of upliftment, and in many volunteer souls who have taken physical forms here. And I've said we've never fully left home. Home is an essence. So even the darkness serves. It has many different purposes as well. Sometimes if the balance is needed, because people, when they go to the extremity of light, again, there could be distortions. But it cannot go to the extreme cases like this anymore, because it violates the treaties. Okay, so this was all I wanted to share about this, because I never want to fully give it all away in one update. I want to keep it a continual base, so you don't have just one video and it's too long, so it's more a continuous base. And this month I want to focus on sharing more of that through my work and becoming a part of my book. There is a reason I was shown why I wasn't guided to write the book before, and it's overall I made an introduction. I made some of the things I've already been writing about, some of the typing of the materials. But from that standpoint of the new consciousness, I was shown I had to be fully through that threshold in my physical incarnation, so that there wasn't any distortions coming through in the book. Because as humans, we can all have those distortions, and I had to work on myself so that would be fully aligned, okay? So keep updated for the book. This whole month I'm focusing on that. The key for all of us is the integration of our own darkness, loving every single aspect of the self. The key is divine love, which comes through the unconditional compassion and acceptance of all life, all timelines and realities with all their counterparts and aspects. Should we repeat that? Okay, let's make it a mantra. To be a fully ascended one, with all of my responsibility to the selfless service of all life in creation, I am willing to integrate, and I am an integrated being of all my light and darkness self, loving every single aspect of the self through the key, the gateway of divine love, which is activated through unconditional compassion and acceptance of all life in creation, all timelines, all realities with all their counterparts and aspects. Okay, so I have just one more last update to share with all of you. I already told you about my book, why I couldn't write, and from this now space I can write with this beyond the veil, beyond these certain distortions that could become a part of this writing. So it's going to be really pure. There's still a lot of work to get all this knowledge into one aspect. The book will actually be almost like a synthesis of everything I've been sharing, with some enhanced visions I haven't shared yet, and these cosmic activation pictures, these drawings that I'm making that take several hours each one to make, but they're totally worth it. They're really spectacular. Yeah, so I really propose to you to prepare, really prepare. Take the Tantric Life Course Mastery and the Galactic Life Course for Consciousness Upgrade Mastery. I'm also I'm going to be preparing the Galactic Signature Level 2 course. It's going to be more on the cosmology, the fixed stars, and how you can actually relate these bigger principles into your mission, because it kind of corresponds to many of the things, and also the main archetypes and how you can become your own living oracle. And I wanted to make separate courses, but I was shown that I'm going to put everything into this one. So it's again going to be a beautiful continuation for those of you that have been taking level 1 of Galactic Signature. This was one of most adored courses as well. People really loved that one because it helped them to activate and remember their own star mission and their alignment and their greater essences and influences. And wow, there's so many ants traveling on my backpack right now. I think it's a message we are all such good working ants, which reminds me, please keep on working by spreading your message. Everyone's message is unique because we need to be different angles and aspects of all life. So you might think, oh, I'm not going to talk about this person or that has already been done, and it's how I had in first this impression of my sketches. But it was like, no, Spirit said, this is unique. This hasn't been done before. And I was like, okay, so we got to learn to follow that. Your messages, everything you share with your willingness, your devotion goes out. But it's not just informational infusion, it's your energetic infusion, which reminds me, I wish to share in conclusion that sometimes people don't understand these things. And the reason I want to share why I'm physically appearing under, under the influence of these videos is because I could do pictures, how many people do, and you expose yourself more this way when you step in front of the camera. But Spirit has always been telling me that my mission is as a light pillar, as a creation pillar, to embody this energy, to beam it out. So when I do any kind of update, it's not just what I share with words, it's a direct energy translation and transmission. So I physically appear in the videos because I'm the living portal for this energy and how I encode it, and through my own decoding of that light and the light language, and then put the infusion of that light translation. So it's like a channeler and an antenna for this light. These direct energy translations can serve you, and again, you're going to have your intimate personal relationship with what comes through for you. That's the beauty of it. When it's not just the words, it's the channeled energy, you're still gonna have your own personal relationship with that. So don't forget also to ground and anchor the energy. It's so important. I was shown this vision of why in the past first there was more contactees, right? Those who channeled, the channelers, they were bringing these star energies forth, and now we are more the new kids in the block. I was shown they had to prepare the grounds for this information to be solid here. So we who are so advanced, we could just say, oh yeah, this serves us so well. These genuine channelers, not people who channel these lower astral levels. That's not the same thing. I mean, those genuine contactees that are very few, they're very rare, but you will recognize them through the unified feel, the love they emanate, the purity of the material, which feels, it doesn't feel dense when you tune into it. It feels like your heart is expanding and it's moving in this spiral motion, and that's how you know, wow, that's cool. If it makes you, anything makes you feel contracted, oh, I wouldn't watch that or listen to that in your example, because it serves us to assist each other, although all the knowledge is already held within you. That's the most important thing. And all the knowledge, everything you have, whatever energy you are translating, never forget to ground and anchor. Anchor, that's so important now, because it's very intense. So I want to share one last thing. I have to take the picture and show you, and to give you one last update, and then we're done. And don't forget to support me via my Patreon channel or donation page. It's very important for the work I'm doing. Sometimes people want to send me physical gifts, but it's kind of like, it's more important for me to simplify. And if in any way you feel my work has impacted you and helped your own ascension journey, make you feel more the being that you truly are beyond all these illusions, is you can go to my donation page or just my Patreon channel, because whatever kind of amount, it doesn't matter. It's not about the amount, it's about the dedication. If that serves you, so that you make a conscious energy exchange, so that you support these living realities that come from the New Earth template and the galactic consciousness of unity. So one last update and then we're done. I promise you guys. I hope it's not too long, okay? Yeah. So I don't know if you remember from my previous galactic update, this beautiful being, it's a being of galactic consciousness, fully tuned into the pulse of light, and the different galactic states and different worlds of creation. So as you remember, I used to do these self-mastery portraits, and the thing is, I'm not going to do them anymore. I used to paint them, and I found this new flow, and with this new consciousness upgrade I've recently experienced, I'm actually going to be doing these galactic portraits, so I can channel and tune into this for you personally, if that's what you're guided to do. I already shared about this in my Ascension update. So tune into your greater self being, and to just draw you in that way, so you can more tune to that greater level of the self. If you're interested, you can find that link down below. It's very simple, nothing too much. This is just one example of this being, but it would be done, of course, specifically for you and your attunement. So if that is an interest and you feel to connect with that more, or you want to also connect more with your gifts, these also are energetic drawings that tune you with that higher state of elevated, upgraded galactic consciousness. So my beautiful star beings, my beautiful volunteer souls, I'm sending you so much love, as always, within the sacred flame of love, wisdom, and power that you hold within you. Have a beautiful month. Have amazing adventures, amazing experiences. Don't forget, they're all from different timelines, realities, but you are the synthesizing force, the grounding pillar that connects them all in unity consciousness. I love you so very much, and it's an honor, joy, and privilege to share all of this within divine love with all of you. Take care. Bye-bye. So, hey guys, so I was just about to finish and I was meditating a bit, and I thought there's something else coming through, and basically Spirit wanted to give me a kind of like a metaphor for the whole brain thing. It's what's happening. So I was contemplating on the fact how we remember things in a different fashion, right? I'm going to give you this very simple example, but through this example, Spirit showed me, it showcased to me how we actually use our brain in different ways depending on what we've been integrating more. So I'm going to give you this example with my mother and I. So I think very much logically and intuitively. So when I remember things, I have sometimes almost photographic memory. I remember things really well. And sometimes even the names. We'll be watching a movie and I'm going to remember that actor. I'm going to remember them by the feeling impression I had at a certain time when I watched something. So the feeling heart memory based is the right side, right? So we were watching a movie and there was this actor that played in The Sound of Music, but I did not remember him from there, and I still felt him as familiar, right? So after that, I go on the database and I log on, and I just said to my mother, I know I've recently seen him, and I see this old aged photo of him as an older man. And I said, that's how I remember him from, and I know it wasn't long ago when we watched a movie with him in it, and I didn't know his name back then. So we go and see that there was this movie in 2015, and I said, I knew it, it was recent, right? I don't remember him from The Sound of Music. So Spirit, through that example, showed me that that right brain hemisphere relates to the feeling memory. So you have a feeling of a time that is cyclical, and yet there's an impression that you hold at that particular moment, yes? So there's a visual that was almost like a photographic memory, what we say, and that photographic memory is not really logical. We might think it's logical, but it's not. It's not related to fact or gathering certain fact about something or names, or, you know, the logical part of you would remember the name of a certain actor. And I'm very good at that too. I remember names, like it was just yesterday. So when we have both of that developed, that's that balance, yeah? And it's a showcasing of your balance. So today we had another example because I was served my clothes that were washed, you know, my mother just folded them. And she, for the second time in a row, gave me these socks that were actually hers. And I throw the socks back at her. I'm like, stop giving me these socks. They're not mine. And we're laughing, you know. I'm like, why are you trying to superimpose these socks to me? I said, these are not mine. Do you want to, like, throw them away? Fine, but don't put them in my drawer. And she's laughing, and I was like making these funny remarks at her. I'm like, how can you not know what you put on your feet, you know, and then you put them in my pile like they're mine, you know? She was saying, but they look too beautiful to be mine. And I started laughing, and it is funny, it's hilarious. But through this example, when I was meditating, Spirit said to me, you see, she remembers through feeling. So her feeling was like this. And many times I ask her about things and she does not remember at all. I'm like, but we watched on this day and that happened. She's like, no, blank, blank, blank. And a part of you could say, well, she's delusional or she's getting old, and it's not even about that. But my mother, for example, she's a very Venusian type. She's very love-based, unconditional love, very developed in her right brain hemisphere. Her logic wasn't always that counterpart, you know, that balanced as the counterpart. And I've been showing her a lot recently about the brain, what exercises she can do, how she can enhance that. And she's been doing a lot of that, and with the crystal work and the circulation of energy flow through both the hemispheres. Also showing her the Galactic Pulse of Light Mastery. And it's a kind of a progress I've seen just in 2 weeks. And I gave her this massage with the cranial, you know, that area in the brain. It was very much triggering certain aspects of her. But it's still about us to integrate that. But Spirit wanted to show to me and to share with you how we can recognize the sort of, you know, through this memory and how we remember things. You know, this like memory is a feeling impression. And sometimes it flows through logic, sometimes more through the visual, that feeling based. But when it's integrated, it will be both, and that's the integration of the brain we've been talking about. There was a simple example I gave you because it's through these examples we can more understand simply, you know, the theory and the showcases we're kind of offered through Spirit about that, what's happening. And yeah, the peak of this mountain you can see right now is the pinnacle of this of this awareness. I almost wanted to rest. I'm like, oh, finally recorded all these hours and hours of videos, and then just this showed up, and I'm like, I gotta share this because it's a nice example. So I hope it serves you in a certain way. Observe yourself. Feel like your brain is like working as a whole unit. Really, this beautiful pulse. You can almost envision a spiraling light as formation of a galaxy, this galactic pulse flowing through your brain, giving it a boost of the life force. And that activity is always stimulated through the core of your higher heart in attuned balance. And that's it. I hope this is really a final offering. And I was like looking at the video lengths. I'm like, yeah, finally under an hour. And I think now not so much. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Okay, guys, take care and enjoy.